The hidden valley glowed softly under Zyphora's twin moons, painting the cliffs and streams in silver and blue. Lyra and Jason had spent the night planning their next steps. The elders of her kind were still watching from a distance, but for the first time, Lyra felt truly confident. She had courage, she had trust, and she had someone by her side who could face any danger. Jason pointed to a small device showing the path to a distant plateau. From there, they could leave the cliffs entirely and reach the human ship. The journey would not be easy. Steep slopes, jagged rocks, and lurking predators awaited them. But Jason's calm demeanor reassured Lyra. He had guided her through worse already. She nodded, her small hand finding his. As they moved, a sudden screech pierced the night. A large predator, bigger and faster than any before, appeared, blocking their path. Lyra froze. Her heart pounded in her chest. Jason stepped forward, his hand steady, and activated a glowing device. The predator hissed and lunged, but Jason's pulse of light forced it back. Then, using another device, he created a temporary shield, allowing them to pass safely. Lyra's chest swelled with awe. Humans were not only brave, they were clever and resourceful, capable of turning danger into opportunity. She followed him closely, stepping carefully along the narrow cliffs. Each movement built their trust and strengthened their bond. The elders had noticed their escape and began moving down the cliffs, their shouts echoing across the valley. Lyra's chest tightened, but she refused to let fear control her. Jason's calm presence reminded her that courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting despite it. She tightened her grip on his hand and moved forward, determined to survive. Hours passed as they navigated the dangerous terrain. The human used devices, clever tactics, and quick thinking to bypass predators and block the elders' view. Lyra realized she had never seen anyone face challenges with such patience and intelligence. Every obstacle was met with strategy, not recklessness, and every danger was turned into a step closer to safety. Finally, they reached the plateau. The human ship rested there, its silver surface reflecting the moonlight. Lyra's heart leapt. Freedom was within reach, but one last obstacle remained. The elders had caught up, their figures standing tall on the cliffs, blocking the narrow path to the ship. Jason knelt beside Lyra, his calm eyes meeting hers. Without words, he communicated a plan. Using a series of small devices, he created a series of bright flashes and loud pulses that confused the elders' sensors. The elders hesitated, unsure of what they saw, giving Lyra and Jason the chance to sprint across the last stretch. Lyra's small legs moved as fast as they could, her heart pounding. Jason stayed close, covering her with a shield that deflected the elders' scanning beams. For the first time, Lyra realized that humans were not only courageous, but capable of facing impossible odds and protecting those who could not defend themselves. They reached the ship. Jason activated the ramp and Lyra ran up, her chest heaving with relief and excitement. As the ramp closed behind them, she looked back at Zyphora's cliffs. Her own kind stared from a distance, realizing they had underestimated both her and the human. Lyra felt no anger or fear, only pride and hope. She had survived, not because she was strong alone, but because she trusted courage, cleverness, and kindness. Inside the ship, Lyra finally allowed herself to breathe. Jason handed her a small device that projected images of distant worlds, humans exploring, building, and helping each other. She smiled, understanding at last that she had been part of something bigger than herself. Humans were not just strong, they were capable of changing lives through courage and compassion. The ship lifted off, gliding smoothly into the skies. Lyra pressed her small hands against the window, watching Zyphora shrink below her. For the first time, she felt free and valued, no longer the mini-alien girl her people had abandoned. She had found acceptance, safety, and hope in a being from another world. Jason glanced at her and smiled faintly. Lyra returned the smile, her heart full. She realized that courage was contagious. It could be taught, shared, and lived. The human had not only saved her life, but had shown her what it meant to be brave, resourceful, and compassionate. As the stars stretched across the sky, Lyra whispered softly, "I am not alone, and I will never be afraid again." In that moment, high above Zephora, the lonely outcast had finally found her place. Humanity's courage had shone brighter than any fear, and it had changed her life forever. For her, she would face the threats ahead, and she would survive. The night on Zephora was deep and quiet, but Lyra could feel the tension in the air. The elders of her kind were still searching, their patrols moving slowly across the cliffs. Every shadow seemed like a threat. Lyra's small heart beat rapidly, but this time she was not alone. Jason, the human who had saved her twice already, stood beside her, calm and prepared. He pointed to the small device he carried, showing her a series of paths along the cliffs. Each route was narrow and dangerous, lined with glowing plants that could shock if touched, and rocky ledges that could break if stepped on the wrong way. Lyra swallowed her fear. She had no choice but to trust him completely. "Are you ready?" Jason asked, his voice low but steady. Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. She realized that escaping her own kind would be harder than surviving the predators of the cliffs. But with him she felt hope. Hope she had never felt before. They began moving, carefully stepping over glowing moss and keeping low behind rocks. The first obstacle came quickly. A patrol of 3 guards appeared ahead, moving silently and scanning the cliffs with their sharp eyes. Lyra froze. Jason crouched beside her and whispered, "Follow my lead." He activated a small device that created a flicker of light, drawing the guards' attention to the opposite side of the cliff. The guards hissed in frustration and moved toward the light. Lyra's pulse raced, but she stayed low and moved as quietly as possible. Her small size became an advantage. She slipped between rocks and glowing plants, following Jason closely. Hours passed as they navigated the narrow ledges. Each step was a challenge, each movement required focus. A single mistake could send them plummeting into the jagged rocks below. But Jason's calm and careful instructions guided her. She realized that humans were not only brave, but also clever, able to think under pressure in ways her own kind never could. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the ledge. A predator had been watching them. Its eyes glowed in the dim light and its claws scraped dangerously close to their path. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Jason moved in front of her, raising a small device that emitted a pulse of light. The predator hissed, backing away, confused and disoriented. Lyra could hardly believe it. Again, he had saved her, without hesitation, without fear. As they pressed on, the cliffs began to widen into a safer plateau. But the elders were not far behind. Lyra could hear distant shouts and see the glow of their scanning devices from above. Time was running out. Jason looked at her and nodded toward a narrow tunnel at the edge of the plateau. "This is our chance," he gestured. Lyra swallowed hard and followed him into the tunnel. It was dark and narrow, the walls slick with moisture. She stumbled a few times, but Jason's hand reached out, steadying her. For the first time, she realized how strong and protective humans could be. They moved silently, each step a test of trust and courage. Finally, the tunnel opened into a hidden valley, illuminated by soft bioluminescent plants. Lyra's eyes widened. The valley was safe, far from the cliffs, with no immediate dangers in sight. She turned to Jason, her chest heaving. He smiled faintly as if saying, "We made it." But just as relief began to settle, a distant shout echoed through the valley. The elders had discovered their path and were pursuing them relentlessly. Lyra's heart jumped. Escape was not yet complete. She looked at Jason, fear and determination mixing in her eyes. He placed a hand on her shoulder, calm as ever, and pointed to a small hovering device. It projected a temporary shield of light, enough to block the elders' view as they moved. With careful steps, they navigated the valley, avoiding the glowing plants and rocky terrain. The elders' shouts grew fainter, but Lyra knew they would return. For now, though, she felt something she had never felt before. Freedom. She was alive, safe, and for the first time she was not alone. As they rested for a moment under the glowing canopy of the valley, Lyra realized something important. Humans were not just strong and brave, they were clever, patient, and willing to protect others, even someone as small and different as her. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and trust toward Jason. The cliffs and the dangers of Zephora were still out there, waiting. But Lyra knew she could face them now. With a human by her side, she felt capable of anything. The lonely outcast had taken her first real step toward a new life. A life where fear did not control her, and courage could come from unexpected places. As night fell and the valley glowed softly, Lyra whispered to herself, "I am not alone anymore." And for the first time, the thought did not bring sadness. It brought hope and courage. The hidden valley was quiet, glowing softly with the bioluminescent plants that lined the cliffs and streams. For the first time since leaving her city, Lyra felt a sense of peace. The dangers of Zephora were still out there, but for now she and Jason were safe. She watched him move with calm precision, checking devices, mapping the valley, and ensuring no predators were nearby. Lyra realized something new. She trusted him completely. Not just because he saved her life, but because he understood her in a way her own kind never could. He did not mock her size, nor did he treat her as weak. Every action he took showed courage, patience, and care, and she felt a warmth in her chest she had never known. As they rested near a softly glowing stream, Lyra finally spoke, her voice small and uncertain. Why do you help me?" she asked. Jason paused and looked at her, his dark eyes calm and serious. He did not speak her language, but he pointed to the device he always carried. On it, images appeared. Humans helping each other, protecting the weak, facing danger without giving up. Lyra understood. He was trying to tell her that humans valued courage and kindness, that helping others was natural to them. She felt a connection she could not explain. These images combined with his actions made her heart swell. She realized that humans could see value where others saw weakness. Suddenly, a soft rustle echoed from the cliffs above. Lyra froze, her instincts screaming that someone or something was watching. Jason moved immediately, scanning the surroundings with his devices. To her surprise, the figures on the cliff were her own kind. The elders and some guards peering from a distance. Lyra's heart sank. She had hoped that leaving her city would mean freedom from their judgment, but here they were, watching her silently, unable to act yet unwilling to leave. For a moment fear returned, clawing at her chest. But then she looked at Jason. His calm presence reassured her. He did not panic. He did not run. He stood strong and ready. The elders whispered among themselves, clearly debating what to do. Some looked angry, others confused. It was clear that they had never seen a human like Jason before. He had saved Lyra multiple times, navigated their dangerous cliffs, and even outsmarted the predators. The elders began to realize that the humans were clever, brave, and most importantly, capable of protecting those who others abandoned. Lyra stepped closer to Jason, holding his hand tightly. She felt a bond forming, a connection stronger than fear or loneliness. She realized that she was no longer a mini alien girl in his eyes. She was someone brave and clever, capable of surviving, and worthy of trust and protection. Jason's actions had given her value and courage she had never known before. Night fell, and the valley glowed softly around them. Lyra and Jason moved to a safe area, staying low as the elders continued their distant watch. Lyra whispered her thoughts to him, unsure if he would understand, but he smiled and nodded gently. The silent understanding between them was enough. Words were not needed. Their bond was clear. Trust, courage, and care had created a connection that could not be broken. As they settled near the stream, Jason activated a small light device, illuminating their area. He handed Lyra a small portion of food, something he had brought from his ship. She took it, her eyes wide with gratitude. For the first time, she felt fully cared for by another being. No one from her city had ever offered her kindness like this. No one had ever looked at her and seen strength, only weakness. The elders' whispers grew quieter. Lyra could see their confusion and disbelief. They had never imagined a human could show such courage and compassion. They had abandoned her for being small and different. Yet here she was, protected and valued by a being from another world. Lyra looked up at the stars, glowing faintly above Zephora. She realized that her life had changed completely. She was no longer alone. She had someone who would fight for her, guide her, and help her survive. And in return, she could trust and rely on her own courage, strengthened by his presence. The Silent Watcher had become more than a guardian. Jason was a friend, a protector, and someone who saw her true value. And for the first time, Lyra felt confident and strong, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, predators, the cliffs, or even her own people. As she rested beside him under the glowing valley, Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "I am not alone, and I am not weak." The bond between them was complete, unspoken but undeniable. It was a connection built on courage, trust, and understanding. A bond that could face any threat. Somewhere in the cliffs, the elders watched, realizing for the first time that their judgment was wrong. But it did not matter anymore. Lyra had found strength, courage, and hope, all because of a human who chose to care. The morning sun painted Zyphora's cliffs in shades of gold and pink. Lyra had spent another night thinking about the human. She could still feel the bravery in his actions, the way he had saved her from predators without hesitation. Her small heart beat faster as she wondered if she could finally meet him. She left her hiding spot cautiously, stepping lightly over glowing plants and rocks. The human was nearby, moving carefully with his scanning device. This time he seemed to be exploring a part of the cliffs that Lyra had never dared to visit. She followed silently, hiding behind rocks, her curiosity stronger than her fear. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed across the cliffs. A predator, larger than any she had seen before, leapt from the shadows. Lyra froze in terror, unsure what to do. The creature's sharp claws scraped the rocks as it approached. Its eyes were fixed on her. Before she could run, the human stepped in front of her, holding a small device that glowed with a bright light. The predator hesitated, hissed, and tried to attack. The human's device emitted a pulse that stunned the creature, forcing it to retreat. Lyra's chest heaved as she realized something amazing. The human had risked himself to save her again. For the first time, Lyra felt courage welling up inside her. She wanted to reach out, to show the human she was not afraid, but also to thank him. Slowly she stepped out from behind the rocks. Her small body trembled as she moved closer to him. The human noticed her immediately. His dark eyes softened as he looked at her. He did not speak, but his presence was gentle and calm. Lyra took a deep breath and made a small gesture, a wave of her hand. It was awkward and hesitant, but the human smiled faintly and waved back. For a few moments, they simply watched each other. Two beings from completely different worlds trying to understand one another. Lyra's fear began to melt away. She realized that the human did not see her as weak or small. He saw her as someone who mattered. Then the human took a small device from his belt and extended it toward her. It emitted a soft glow and produced images of humans helping each other, building, exploring. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen such images before. The humans in the holograms were kind, strong, and brave. They worked together, cared for one another, and faced dangers without giving up. Lyra felt a spark of hope. Maybe humans were different from her own kind. Maybe they could understand what it was like to be different. Tentatively, she reached out and touched the device. The human smiled again, a warmth in his expression that made her feel safe for the first time in her life. Suddenly, a faint rustle in the rocks made Lyra jump. Another predator was nearby, moving silently, ready to strike. The human reacted quickly, pulling another glowing device from his belt. A shield of light appeared, and the predator hissed before retreating into the shadows. Lyra's eyes filled with awe. Humans were not only brave, they were clever. They could face dangers that she could not imagine. After the danger passed, the human knelt down to Lyra's level. He extended a hand, not to grab her, but as an invitation. Lyra hesitated. She had never been touched kindly by anyone from her own kind. Slowly, she placed her small hand in his. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver of comfort through her. She realized that for the first time, she was not alone. The human then gestured for her to follow. He did not speak in her language, but his gestures were clear and patient. Lyra nodded and stepped closer, trusting him. Together they began to explore the cliffs, moving carefully and silently. The world felt different now, brighter and safer. As they walked, Lyra noticed something strange. Her own kind was watching from a distance, their eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. They could not understand why she would trust a human, why she would step away from them. But Lyra did not care. She had found someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who could help her survive, someone who made her feel valuable and strong. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cliffs. Lyra looked at the human, her heart filled with gratitude. For the first time, she felt hope for the future. Maybe this stranger from another world was the beginning of something new. Maybe he could show her a life where she was accepted, where her small size and differences did not matter. As night fell, the cliffs glowed faintly with the bioluminescent plants. Lyra held the human's hand tightly, no longer afraid of the unknown. She had faced predators, loneliness and mockery, but now, with him, she felt courage stirring within her. Somewhere in the dark, dangers still lurked. Some of her own kind were still watching, unsure of what to do, but Lyra no longer felt powerless. She had made her first contact with someone who could change her life, someone who could help her find a place where she truly belonged. For the first time, the lonely outcast felt a tiny flame of hope. And that flame burned brighter than any fear. The cliffs were quiet that morning, but Lyra could feel a tension in the air. The events of the previous day, the humans saving her, their first contact, had changed everything. She could sense it in the whispers of the wind and the distant cries of creatures moving in the shadows. Something was coming, something she could not yet see. Lyra had begun to trust the human, whose name she learned was Jason from the device he carried. He had shown her ways to understand the cliffs, to avoid predators, and even how to make small traps to scare off the smaller dangers. She had never felt so safe, so understood, and yet she had a strange feeling that her world was about to shift in a way she could not control. As they walked along a narrow ledge, carefully avoiding the glowing plants that could give off a painful shock if touched, Lyra noticed shadows moving far below. Her heart sank. She recognized the shapes immediately. It was her own kind. The elders of her village, accompanied by several guards, were approaching the cliffs. They had been searching for her ever since she disappeared the day before. Fear clawed at her chest. They would not understand why she was with a human. They would only see betrayal. They had always scorned her for being different, and now they would see her trusting an outsider, a human. Lyra's small hands trembled as she glanced at Jason. He seemed calm, as always, but she could sense the tension building around them. One of the elder aliens shouted from below, their voice harsh and commanding. "Lyra, come back! You must not associate with them." The words cut through the air like blades. The guards moved closer, scanning every corner of the cliffs. Lyra's stomach twisted. She had never seen her own people act with such anger. Jason knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Without words, he made it clear. Stay calm, do not show fear. He gestured to a small hidden path he had discovered yesterday. It wound behind the cliffs, narrow but safe, and they could escape the immediate danger if they were careful. As Lyra followed him, she noticed the expressions of the elders. Some looked angry, others confused, but one thing was clear: they feared the human. His presence alone seemed to disrupt their world, their authority. Lyra felt a mix of pride and fear. Pride because she had found someone who was brave and clever. Fear because her own kind might never forgive her. The path led them to a hidden cave, glowing faintly from bioluminescent moss. They crouched inside, listening to the sounds of the search above. Lyra's heart pounded. The elders were methodical and ruthless, moving slowly but surely through the cliffs, their voices cutting through the silence. She realized they might search all night. Jason looked at her and extended a small device, pointing to it. On the screen, there were symbols and images showing safe paths and escape routes across the cliffs. Lyra understood immediately. He had already thought of a plan. Her chest swelled with a sense of trust and admiration. Humans were clever, courageous and strategic, unlike anyone she had ever known. Hours passed, and the sounds of searching grew quieter. Lyra realized the elders were starting to leave, but she knew this was only temporary. They would return, and next time, they would not be so hesitant. She whispered her fears to Jason, and although he did not speak her language, his calm expression said it all. They would be ready. Together, they could face anything. Suddenly, a small drone appeared from above, sent by the elders. It hovered silently, scanning the cave. Lyra froze. Jason quickly activated a device that emitted a blinding light, confusing the drone's sensors. It wobbled, tried to stabilize, and then flew off in the wrong direction. Lyra's eyes widened. This human was not just brave, he was ingenious under pressure. As night fell, the cliffs became darker, the glowing plants casting long, eerie shadows. Lyra realized something important. Her life was no longer just about hiding or surviving. It was about choosing who to trust and learning who could protect her. She looked at Jason and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had saved her not just from predators, but from despair. The secret threat of her own kind lingered in the darkness, a reminder that her past and her home were not yet behind her. But with the human by her side, she felt stronger and braver than ever before. Somewhere in the distance, the cliffs echoed with the whispers of the elders, but Lyra no longer trembled. She had found someone who could teach her courage, someone who could show her that being small or different did not mean being powerless. As they settled in the hidden cave, Lyra whispered a promise to herself. No matter what came next, she would not let fear control her. With the silent watcher, the human who had risked everything, the planet of Zephora was alive with colors that seemed almost unreal. Skies shifted between deep purple and glowing pink, while floating islands drifted above the ground like giants in slow motion. Yet in this world of wonder, Lyra felt invisible. She was small even for her alien kind, with delicate limbs and shimmering green skin. Her eyes, larger than most, reflected both the beauty of the world and the sadness that weighed her down. From the moment she was born, her own kind had whispered cruel words. Mini alien girl, they called her, laughing as she tried to reach branches too high for her. They mocked her in the streets and avoided her in the schools. Lyra learned quickly that her size made her different. Her difference made her weak in the eyes of the others, even though her mind was sharp and her heart brave. Every day she walked to the edges of her city, away from the crowds. The abandoned cliffs became her sanctuary. There, the wind whispered to her, carrying secrets she could almost understand. The flowers that glowed in the dark seemed to nod at her presence, welcoming her in a way no one else did. She would sit on the highest rocks and watch the distant lands, imagining a life where she could be accepted. Today felt different, though. As Lyra climbed to her favorite ledge, she noticed something unusual, a faint humming sound coming from the sky. It was steady, mechanical, and unlike anything Zephora had ever produced. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from curiosity. Slowly, she crouched behind a rock, peering through the gaps. A small silver craft descended from the purple sky. It landed softly, its engines leaving only a shimmer of light on the ground. Lyra's eyes widened. She had never seen a ship like this. None of the alien kinds in her city had such technology. She knew she should run, hide, or call for help, but something inside her told her to stay. As she watched, the hatch of the ship opened. A figure stepped out. He was tall and strong, with skin pale and hair dark, unlike anyone Lyra had ever seen. He moved carefully, scanning the surroundings. Lyra froze, unsure if he was friend or foe. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to hide, but her curiosity was stronger. For hours, she observed him from a distance. He examined the rocks, took small devices from his belt, and recorded what he saw. Sometimes he would pause and look at the sky, as if listening for something. Lyra realized he was not like the others in her city. He did not laugh at her, nor did he dismiss the world around him. There was a calmness about him, a patience that fascinated her. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the cliffs. A predator of Zephora, large and swift, appeared, its scales shimmering in the sunset. Lyra's heart froze. She knew she could not outrun it. The predator was hunting, and she was its prey. Fear clawed at her. But before she could move, the human reached into his belt and released a small device that emitted a bright flash of light. The predator hissed and retreated, disappearing into the shadows. Lyra could not believe her eyes. This stranger had saved her life. Her small body trembled, but she felt something new, a spark of hope. Maybe not all beings in this universe were cruel or dismissive. Maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for more than her size, for more than the way others laughed at her. Night fell, and the purple skies darkened. Lyra watched as the human inspected the area, leaving tiny markers on the rocks. He never noticed her, but she noticed him. There was something gentle about the way he moved, careful not to disturb the world around him. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced with her own kind. As the stars blinked awake, Lyra realized that her life might be changing. The cliffs that had once been her prison now felt like the beginning of an adventure. She could feel it in her bones. The world was bigger than her small city, and someone from beyond the stars had arrived. Someone who might finally understand what it was like to be different. With a cautious step, Lyra moved closer to the edge of the ledge, her eyes never leaving the human. She did not know if he would ever see her, or if he even meant to help. But for the first time, she felt a flicker of trust, a tiny flame of courage that whispered, "Maybe I am not alone." The wind swirled around her, carrying the scent of distant worlds and unknown dangers. And somewhere in the dark, the predator still waited, a reminder that survival was never guaranteed. Yet Lyra did not run. She would watch. She would wait. And when the time was right, she would step forward. For now, the lonely outcast had found something she had never felt before. Hope. The next morning, Lyra woke on her usual ledge, the early light of Sci-Fi spilling across the cliffs. Her mind replayed the events of the night before, the predator, the strange human, and the sudden hope she had felt. She couldn't stop thinking about him. Who was he? Why had he saved her? And most importantly, would he come back? The cliffs were quiet at first. Only the wind whispered through the glowing plants, swaying them gently. Lyra kept her eyes on the horizon, scanning the sky for any movement. Then she noticed it, a faint shimmer far above, moving steadily against the pastel clouds. The human ship was back. It hovered silently, almost ghost-like, just above the cliffs. Lyra's heart raced. She had wanted to see him again, but fear held her in place. She stayed hidden behind a rock, careful not to make a sound. Hours passed. The human landed again, this time in a small clearing closer to her hiding place. He stepped out slowly, scanning the surroundings with careful eyes. He pulled out a small scanning device, moving methodically from rock to rock, almost as if he was reading the land itself. Lyra wanted to call out to run to him, but something in the human's movements told her he would notice her if she tried too soon. So she stayed silent. She watched, fascinated, as he crouched near a glowing plant and took notes in a small device. He did not speak, did not make a sound, yet his presence was calming. Then came the first hint of danger. A shadow moved swiftly across the clearing, a smaller predator this time, quick and silent. It had noticed the human, or maybe it had smelled him. Lyra's pulse quickened. She wanted to warn him, but her fear froze her in place. Before she could think, the human raised a small glowing device from his belt. A bright pulse of light shot from it, striking the predator. It screeched and disappeared into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. Lyra's mouth went dry. He had done it again. This human could face dangers she could not even imagine, yet he did it with calm and precision, not arrogance or fear. Curiosity overtook her fear. Lyra inched closer, keeping low behind rocks and glowing plants. She wanted to see him more clearly. She noticed the way he moved, steady, careful, and aware of every detail around him. Every step he took seemed deliberate. He was not reckless like the others in her city. He valued life, not just his own, but all life around him. Hours passed again. The human began to explore the cliff edges near her hiding spot. Lyra's small heart thumped loudly. She wanted to run to reveal herself, but she also wanted to understand him. Slowly she began leaving tiny signs, small scratches on rocks, markings in the dirt, testing whether he would notice. To her amazement, he did. The human paused and looked at the marks. For a moment his eyes scanned the rocks carefully. Lyra froze, holding her breath. Then he smiled faintly and added a mark of his own, almost like an answer. Lyra's chest lifted. He was communicating. He had seen her signs and responded without words. Suddenly the wind shifted sharply, and Lyra's instincts screamed at her. A larger predator was approaching, its scales glinting in the sunlight. Lyra froze, but the human's reaction was immediate. He activated another device, a shield that flared with light, and the predator skidded back, roaring in frustration. Lyra could not believe her eyes. This human was brave, clever, and careful. He did not run. He did not fight recklessly. He watched, waited, and acted at the right moment. She had never seen such courage. Her tiny body shook, not from fear, but from awe. As the predator retreated into the shadows, the human looked around, scanning the area again. Lyra's eyes met his briefly, and for a heartbeat, she felt seen. He did not speak, but his calm presence told her something she had never known before. She was not alone in the universe. Someone from another world cared enough to notice her, to protect her, even from danger she could not escape. Night fell again. The purple skies darkened, and the cliffs glowed faintly in the soft light of Zephora's moons. Lyra stayed in her hiding spot, watching the human work methodically, silently, as if he belonged to the land itself. She realized something important. She could trust him. Maybe not fully yet, but enough to start believing that someone beyond her world could understand her, and maybe even care for her. As she crawled back to her shelter for the night, a small smile touched her lips. The loneliness that had weighed her down for so long felt slightly lighter. Somewhere out there, a silent watcher had arrived. He had seen her, and he had shown her something she had never expected: hope. The cliffs were no longer just a place to hide. They had become the first steps towards something bigger. A new world, perhaps even a new life, was beginning to open before her. And Lyra was ready, silently watching, waiting, and learning from the silent watcher who had changed everything.